My name is Martin Hagglund. I'm an associate professor at Linkoping University. I'm a member of a UEFA injury study group. It all began in 1999 and 2000 when the former president of UEFA, Lennart Johansson, had a concern about the players at the top level playing too many matches. So he approached Professor Jan Ekstrand, who's a member of the group, and a member of the medical committee, to introduce a study about injuries at top-level football and the association between matching and injury rates. What we see now is that muscle injuries, and particularly to the thigh and to the posterior thigh, the hamstring muscle groups, is the most common injury nowadays. And this is typically a sprinting or high-speed running injury. It occurs during periods of increased match congestion and shorter periods of recovery. So we think that fatigue and playing intensity plays a big role in the occurrence of these injuries. I think it could be partly due to the features of Champions League games in that the intensity increases. The matches mean a lot, so there's a lot of pressure coming up to these matches. I think it could also be a situation where you want to have your best players on the pitch no matter what, so perhaps some clubs are willing to take some chances with players who have minor complaints and minor injuries, let them back on the pitch to have the best team available, and that will increase re-injury rates and perhaps also the overall injury rate. And also the completion of the Champions League is towards the end of the season, with the finish of the domestic league and also the Champions League. So players play a lot of matches on a short period of time, and we know that this increases injury risk as well. I think this is certainly an issue here for instance, in the English Premier League, where they don't have a winter break. So this has been discussed quite heavily in England, whether the players get fatigued during this period of the year, for instance. Otherwise, I think that in some of the best clubs, they have big squads, big competitive squads, and they are able to rotate players between matches. So they can afford to let overmatched players have some restitution, perhaps don't play the next league game, for instance. Whereas in many smaller clubs, they don't have this same competitive level of 25 players, so they will be forced to play some of the players more often than perhaps they really want to do. If we, as medical professionals, want to bring on these matches, we can talk to coaches and managers with a different language than just speaking about ankle injuries or groin injuries. But if we can speak a language that they appreciate and understand about, in terms of injuries decreasing the match availability, injuries decreasing the team performance as well as the player performance, of course, then I think it's easier to reach through and get them to invest more in injury prevention, even at the top level. In that if you have an injury and you're forced to substitute a player during a game, or 2 or 3 players during a game because of injury, this of course will change your game plan. So I think that's the reason why injuries can affect the results of the game, in that an injury it has a psychological impact on the team, but also it changes the game plan during the game, which can have negative effects on the match results as well. What we have seen in our data is that players who play a lot of matches in the 10 or 12 weeks prior to the World Cup or European Cup, these major championships, they tend to perform worse and have more injuries as compared to players who have matched less in the weeks coming up to the major events. So I think we definitely have to look at the problem of overmatching some of the players here. Final of the Champions League, Europa League, and the domestic competitions just headed up to the World Cup, for instance. That is a potential problem indeed.